more legal and business development for BenefitBump. It's great to be with you all. BenefitBump connects the dots to make things easier and less stressful for growing and working families. Childcare is certainly an area where working parents could use some help. We recently conducted a mom survey with over 550 moms from around the country, and 79% of those moms said that they struggled with securing childcare. That is a huge percentage. Joining us today is Lynn Perkins, founder of UrbanSitter. UrbanSitter helps families secure childcare, backup care, elder care, and pet care. Lynn, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you and all of BenefitBump for having me. As you probably know, based on what I do, this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm excited that we're going to take some time today to talk about it.
Yes, and childcare really is something employers need to be helping their working parents solve for. So we'll be going through current childcare pain points, solution options, and why it's a business no-brainer to help working parents in this area. So Lynn, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, great. I'll get into some solutions later, and I guess I want to start by saying that on the solution front, there's a whole wide range of options for employers to think about, and there's an entry point, I think, for every employer, and even the littlest amount of help to working parents and actually working caregivers in general makes a huge difference. So anybody who's been watching the news during the pandemic knows that childcare is in crisis. This was really highlighted by the pandemic. However, I think that rather than just being in an acute period in time where working parents are looking for support, I actually think this is an ongoing problem that's really just been highlighted by the pandemic and by the severity of it during the pandemic. Similar to the study that BenefitBump did, UrbanSitter also conducted a study of working parents and found out that employees do in fact feel that childcare is one of the number one things that they need support on in order to do their jobs effectively. In fact, working parents said that their number one stressor was actually juggling work at home responsibilities, all of those responsibilities. And the third one, right behind juggling the two, was childcare. It was their number two stressor as a category, thinking about childcare and how to juggle that with work and other responsibilities. And a lot of employers are now tuning into the fact that employees' mental health, and particularly during the pandemic, really suffered. And 67% of the employers surveyed feel that their increased caregiving demands were a driver for their mental health state. And again, I think this was all exacerbated during the pandemic. But what I really want to drive home is the point that over 70% of employees in America identify themselves as a caregiver. This can be for a child, for an elder member of their family, for somebody with special needs. And so what we're talking about here is not really a niche problem, but it's a problem that most employees are facing. And it's my hope that by elevating this topic during the pandemic, that we can actually come up with solutions for employees that will work beyond the pandemic as we return to a more normal state. We can go on to the next slide. So what do working parents need? As I mentioned, we surveyed tens of thousands of parents, and we said, okay, what do you need from your employer in order to better support you so that you can be more successful and more dedicated to your job? And they said, number one, offer some type of a childcare benefit. And I'll get into specifics on this. And again, it doesn't have to be a heavy lifting solution, but something that they can actually utilize. Number two is to normalize working while caring for a child. And this response doesn't necessarily mean working while their child is sitting next to them, but what it means is, when possible, create an atmosphere for me in my job where I can hit all the goals that are subscribed to me, while at the same time balancing the needs I have with my child. And this ties in, I think, to the third response, which was allowing flexible hours. And I know this is really, this one can really vary based on the type of industry that your business is in. This may vary based on the type of job, but when possible, giving people the option to create a schedule that works both for their work-life balance as well as for their employer will really help with employee retention and job satisfaction. So, before I dive into the solutions, I want to talk about the business case behind this, because I think if I'm sitting in the shoes of somebody who's making a decision about benefits, I want to know, what's the return on this going to be to my my company as a whole? And what they found is that improving childcare resources for employees actually improves working parents' experience, which relates to employee retention, employee quality of work, and also it helps with talent acquisition. So as a company, if you can say that you are supporting working parents, you're going to be much more likely to acquire those parents in your hiring practices. So companies are at risk of losing employees due to this work-life balance. So in addition to talking about the return on this investment, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that if you don't do something to help your employees who are handling care at home, you actually risk losing them. And 28% of new moms switched employers, and actually 10% left the workforce altogether in the first 2 years of their child's life. And in most cases, they were leaving due to poor work-life balance. And this is something that most employers can have an impact on and try to accommodate those employees. And again, as we all know, keeping a good employee in their seat is much more valuable to the company in the long run, both in terms of the economic investment as well as the long-term viability and company culture. And 48% left as a result of, or 48% were upset as a result of lack of flexible work arrangements. And I know this can be really challenging in jobs where there is sort of a set schedule in place, or there is a certain time that people need to be doing the job. But again, when possible, I think this is one that companies can try to accommodate. And so I thought I would talk about, I put a couple of quotes in here around employee retention. So this is from One Medical, which is one of our corporate clients. And one of their employees said when they were surveyed about their childcare benefit that the company offers, they said, just knowing that One Medical cares about you and your family, that helps. And I think it's a combination of actually benefit utilization combined with employees knowing that if something were to come up for me, that my company is there to help me get through that period of time. And it could be a family who is going through a nanny switch or a daycare switch, or simply finds themselves in a pinch for a period of time where they need a childcare solution in order for one or both parents to continue doing their jobs. And then this is from an HR executive at one of our companies, and he says, we do engagement surveys and look at the results, and we get good results when employees are asked about our care benefit offering. Again, I think this is something that in the past, it's been a nice to have for companies, and I think we're seeing a shift where it's becoming more and more both an expectation and something that employees and potential employees are looking for when they're considering either their current employer or a future employer. And then finally, I think this goes a long way in terms of talent acquisition. This is, again, from a third party, an HR executive who says, she says, our care benefit is great because it's something we can talk about when we're trying to hire people. It just fits in with our other family-friendly policies. I think this is like something that companies can kind of take a deep look at and say, what is the kind of company culture we're looking to create here? And does our benefit package align with that company culture? And doing that can help illustrate areas where your company needs to enhance what they're offering. It may also highlight for you things that you're doing really well that you should really be putting out forward when you're looking to recruit. And so, you know, the one thing I guess I really want to reiterate on this call is that there are a lot of steps that you can take to address working parents' needs. And some of them are really quite low cost, moving up to sort of the ultimate, I'll sort of call it the gold standard scenario. But there's a lot along the way, and each step that you take will enhance your employees, your working parents' satisfaction. And also it shows that the company is making an effort overall to become more progressive in the benefits that they offer. So I thought I would just kind of outline them here as sort of basic, better, best. And on the good front, you know, I think offering schedule flexibility when you can, or even offering it for periods of time. I think one of the things that we're seeing as a trend coming out of the pandemic is that as companies are bringing employees back to the office, many of them are saying, okay, our expectation is that you're here in the office X number of days a week, but we are going to change our policy so that during the calendar year, you can work, it can be 1 to 3 weeks from the location of your desire, assuming that you're still hitting your goals. But even just that flexibility is really helpful as a working parent who's thinking about, okay, I have a 2-week time frame where I'm going to have a gap in childcare, and I can be working from home with another family member there, but I need the flexibility of where I'm working out of. That's just one example. Another thing to offer would be some kind of subsidized access to a childcare platform. There are many of us out there that are in the childcare platform space, and offering your employee a membership to one of these platforms really helps take the friction out of the process when all of a sudden they find themselves in a pinch and they need to turn to a source to help find childcare. I'll get into later on the slides, I'll talk a little bit about how to actually identify what the right solution is. But again, this is kind of just a good basic first step. If you wanted to go up a notch from there, you would do a little more of each of these. So instead of just offering schedule flexibility, you would support a combination of a paid time off policy with some kind of an unpaid time off policy that allows family members to readily take that time when they need to care for a family member. So in addition to both having this benefit, you want to make sure that you're spreading the word about this to your employees so that they know when they hit this crunch where they need to spend time with a family member, they have both some paid support from their company as well as some flexibility to take some unpaid time off. And then the next step on the childcare benefit would be to actually subsidize some of the care hours that are being offered through the childcare platform or through another backup care partner. So here you would say, okay, we're going to offer a very limited backup care policy where we're going to try to cover, it could be anywhere from 4 hours per quarter for an employee for care to a full day, but something that's really more limited and really fills the gap when they find themselves in that last minute pinch. And then the absolute best case scenario would be a company policy where you provide paid time off, a more robust paid time off policy where your employees can take care of family members. You offer a more generous child care benefit where you're actually subsidizing costs can cover both unplanned last minute childcare needs as well as planned ones. So this might be enough coverage to cover 5 days of care so that when an employee knows that their daycare center is closed for 5 days, you're actually helping to subsidize that full period of time. And then the other thing I would say, this is a trend that we started to see during COVID, and I think it's a really interesting one that will continue to grow moving forward. And that is, we're seeing more employers being excited about this idea that an employee can actually bring their own care provider onto our platform or the platform of one of our competitors, and that the employer would then provide the subsidy and the employee could pay their known care provider through the platform. This is particularly a great idea if you have employees in very remote locations, or if you have an employee base that you know is using a family member or somebody in their community in a more casual way to take care of their child. This allows them to keep that same structure in place, but allows them to take some of the support from the company to apply to that structure. This can be particularly good when you have a wide range of jobs ranging from, let's say, distribution center employees up to executives. It really meets each category of worker where they are in terms of the care solutions that they look for. I'm excited about this one. I think it really helps to spread the benefit into more sort of distributed workforce locations. And then if you wanted to sort of be the granddaddy of them all in terms of care benefits, you could also look at offering a center-based care benefit. For massive corporations, this may be partnering with a large childcare provider and building a center on site. Or in other cases, if you're a smaller company, this might be working with either a daycare or childcare center to offer care to the employees out in the community, or it might just be a general subsidy that employees can apply to their current daycare situations. So again, a whole spectrum, so lots of options. And then coming from somebody who sells these benefits into companies, this is what I would, if I had a friend come to me and say, okay, Lynn, I'm going to start looking at benefits for my employees, how should I go about it? These are the pieces of advice that I would give her. I would say, number one, start by knowing your employee population. And this can be easily done through a survey, spending time with some of the leaders of each department, making sure they're talking to people on their teams, but identify what the biggest pain point is. You don't need to tackle all of it at once. Start with biggest pain point. And if you're hearing that that is last minute backup care, then you should start by focusing on that. You may find out that actually the majority of your employees have older kids and what they really need is a tutoring solution. But I think by surveying your population of employees, you'll get an idea for what is like the number one problem that your company, your company may have a unique situation that you want to make sure that you're targeting that situation first in your solution. And then I would say select the right partner. So look for recommendations from other HR executives that you know and trust. Look to thought leaders in the category. What are they doing? What are they talking about? And ask your own employees what solutions they use when they're looking for care. And then I would just say, I would make sure that your partner is absolutely aligned on what success looks like for your company. You want to make sure that whether it's looking at a target utilization rate or how you're going to market this benefit, you want a partner who's going to stand alongside you, not just getting the deal done, but also that will come in and see what's working and what's not working and help to modify the benefit to make sure that you're getting your desired outcome. And then I would make sure that they're also in a position to grow as your organization grows. So if today you just need the very basic level of a childcare benefit, but you know that 3 years from now, you're going to want to offer something more robust, all the better to try to find a partner today that will help you through those different phases. And then this is a super basic one, but make sure that the payment model that they're suggesting actually fits the use case. So you want to make sure that what you're paying for is actually getting utilized. So don't sign up for something where you're paying a lot up front and then you later find out that the company hasn't utilized the benefit. And then, make sure that once you've signed them up that you're measuring utilization and satisfaction. This should be something that the partner is doing as well as you with your own employees. So the partner should be looking at the satisfaction of your employees. They should be able to know which of the customers are your employees and be able to segment out their satisfaction scores. They should be interested in getting the feedback from you that you're hearing from your employees. And then, finally, I would say lean into some differentiated offerings. Going back to the employee survey, if you find out that there is some pressing need in your company that's very unique, don't be afraid to double down and invest in some situations like that. It may really be a turning point for your company, and finding out that you're an employer that addresses that specific need may help with retention of your current employees, but also may be a big attractor for people who are looking for a new company to join. And then finally, I want to make sure we have time for questions. So this is just my, what is the future for working parents? I think there's some interesting initiatives underway that I wanted to share. One is something that I hope that all HR leaders and executives are getting behind, but there's some legislative changes underway that are being proposed, whether it's the American Families Plan that's been proposed by Biden, or many states are actually looking at offering more standardized paid leave. A lot of these programs and initiatives that are being put forth would actually use state and federal funds, and many of those funds are not actually being derived from companies directly, to subsidize paid leave. And this would be a huge win for companies because it would allow you to then take either the dollars that you're currently investing in that kind of leave to invest in other programs. And I also just believe it will help bring more women into the workplace across the country. And it will sort of up level where the benefit offerings start because a base package is being subsidized by state and federal dollars, which if I were in the seat of somebody who has control of the budget of my company's benefits right now, I would really get to know the proposed changes both in my state and at a national level. I think, we're going to see a change in the office. We're already hearing about large companies talking about what the return to work is going to look like. And I think we will see more flexibility. And then, schedule, I talked about schedule flexibility. And then I think that benefits are changing. And I think that people are looking for packages that are more robust than the base sort of healthcare options that have previously been offered. And employees are going to start looking for companies that offer benefits that match their own personal needs. And then finally, I've heard a little bit of ruffling underfoot that we may end up in a spot where corporate incentives are offered to companies that do offer a certain level of benefits to their employees. And I think that would be a big win for companies that are taking the lead in some of this. So this is just kind of my looking into the future. What do I both hope and what do I both think may happen? Yeah, that's kind of where we're at today. And I'd love to welcome questions. I'm happy to answer questions about your specific company or questions about childcare benefits overall.
Yes, thank you so much, Lynn. This has just been super helpful, great quick hit session. Love to hear your take on the pain points, solutions, and why it's a business no-brainer. When we help working parents connect the dots to make their lives easier and less stressful, we help them feel valued and fulfilled and included at work, and so they stay. And BenefitBump connects employees to their employer, to the benefits that their employer offers. And so when BenefitBump and UrbanSitter work together side by side, we help ensure better outcomes for working families. And like you said, Lynn, so anybody on the call, please reach out if you have any questions or if you would like to learn more about how BenefitBump and UrbanSitter can help you or your clients create a more family-friendly work environment. And I definitely want to get to the Q&A session, so I'll turn it over to Kate for some of our questions.
Hello, everybody. So if you didn't see my message at the beginning of the presentation, any questions that came up while you were listening, if you could type them in the chat section, we will be sure to get to them. I know one person asked if the presentation will be sent out to participants, and the answer is yes. So keep an eye out in your email for that. And then while we're waiting to see if we have any live questions, we have a couple of questions that came in ahead of time, Lynn, that I'll go ahead and ask. The first is, with return to office underway or maybe on the horizon, how is UrbanSitter preparing for an uptick in care needs?
Yeah, absolutely. With parents going back to the office and the state of school in the fall, particularly for kids under age 12 that haven't had the vaccination, still in flux. One of the things that we're already seeing happen now is that parents are looking for a steady care provider who has flexibility in their schedule. This is an interesting trend that I think we'll continue to see, where families are looking to find one care provider and they're willing to guarantee a certain number of hours a week. So it might be, let's say, 20 hours a week. And the parent says to the care provider, I want someone who's going to work with just my family. I'm willing to guarantee you X number of hours. And, but I do need some flexibility. So during the summer, it might be covering during the day versus in the fall, it might be the 2 virtual days from home and the 4 afternoons a week, or 3 afternoons a week when there's school pickup. And so what parents are trying to do right now is sort of hedge against what's about to happen and find that one care provider who is willing to help them do that. And I saw someone had asked a question about, you know, I can speak specifically for UrbanSitter. They'd asked, like, what are some of UrbanSitter's differentiators? And one of the things that we've done is we've really heavily invested in the specific category of people who are looking for that one time, the steady sitter, but with the schedule flexibility. And we've added some features into our product that allow parents to say, I want somebody who lives within X miles of me and is willing to work a minimum of 20 hours a week, and I'll guarantee that, but I need some flexibility. And so in our product, we've tried to actually mirror what we're seeing happen in terms of trends. The other one that we've also integrated into our product that we are seeing happen, we saw during the pandemic, a lot of people were looking for these care pods. They wanted to bring together 1 or 2 local neighborhood children that were of a similar age of their child, and they wanted to bring in an educator, somebody with a background in early childhood education who could work with just that small pod of children. And even as preschools have gone back and daycares have reopened, that pod has continued to be a really strong trend. And I think as we see more workplace flexibility, I think the pod sitter will continue to be on the rise, where families are looking for, again, it's care that matches their timing needs, also bringing in somebody who has a special skill for their child's age and potentially coupling that with 1 or 2 other people in the neighborhood. So we've built some features into UrbanSitter to do that. You know, some of the other, the question about the differentiators, just real fast. All of the care providers on our platform are not just national background check, but they also go through a county level check. And then a big component of what we do is based around connections. And so we have over 300,000 organizations that appear on our platform and allow you to see how you're connected to the sitter. So for instance, I'll give an example. We work with Slack. And if you're a Slack employee, when you go to look for that last minute care provider and you see, oh, great, this person's available tomorrow morning and they have a very low cancellation rate, and I can watch a video about them, I can read about their certifications, but I can also see that 2 other parents from Slack and 3 parents from my preschool have used that care provider. And when you're a parent in a pinch, no matter how urgent your need is, you're never going to pick a childcare solution if it doesn't feel like the most trusted one for your family. And so what we've tried to do is put into the product all of these trust indicators that parents look for in the offline world, but we've tried to couple that with the technology that makes it an incredibly efficient and easy booking experience.
I was doing a little bit of furious nodding during that last part there.
I see Sarah nodding along.
I know. Yeah. I'm trying not to nod too much, but Lynn, everything you're saying, I have 2 kids and I've just experienced all the pain points we're talking about. So it's really resonating with me as a working mom.
Well, then I should add on the other differentiator, which I think about it more from the end consumer's perspective, but for employers, the other thing that's probably our biggest differentiator is that with subsidized childcare, we actually only charge for the time that gets utilized, and we pay our care providers 100% of that dollar amount. So you're getting the highest quality care because we don't take a cut from our providers. And as an employer, you're only paying for care that gets used versus paying us any money up front that doesn't get utilized.
That's a big difference.
And again, whether that comes from us, I'm here more because I'm excited about the category, whether that comes from UrbanSitter or someone else. Back to my point, if you're looking at care benefits, you should make sure that both the quality of the product and the pricing of the solution match what you're looking for.
So there was also a clarification question in the chat. And that was, what does paying employees to take care of family members include? Is this caring for sick children?
Yes, so we're seeing sick children is definitely one that makes the list, because oftentimes, even if your child has a daycare solution in place, sometimes daycares have pretty strict policies, even more so obviously with COVID, about when a child can and can't go into the daycare or to school, and sometimes nannies don't want to take care of a child who has symptoms. So on UrbanSitter, and I know this is the case in other platforms as well, there's an indicator where you can say willing to take care of sick kids. And so if your child has a slight fever and you are looking for care, you can post that you have a child with a slight fever, and you can find care providers. Oftentimes they're actually nurses themselves, and they are willing to take care of sick kids. And particularly during COVID, we've seen an increase in this as more adults have become vaccinated. These adult care providers are more willing to go into the homes of sick kids, knowing that they themselves are now protected. But even with seasonal flu, we have care providers that are willing to go in the home and work with children who have mild symptoms.
And Lynn, have you seen employers pay their employees to take care of sick family members? So if the kid is getting sick, or a parent or something like that, have you seen that as well?
We've traditionally seen that just as a paid leave benefit. We don't see it through our platform, but where we are seeing it, which I mentioned earlier, is that you often have situations where, again, you can, no matter, you can't sort of force a family to make a choice that they're not comfortable with. And so in some situations, you may have two parents that need to go to work and they have a sick child, and they actually have a family member who's willing to take care of that child. Again, this could even be something where it's coming up, it's a school break. And so what these employers are now allowing their employees to do is to bring that family member onto our platform. Employers like this because that person has gone through a national and county vetting process. We also have an extensive vetting process that occurs behind the scenes. So the employer knows, okay, this family member that they're bringing in, not only does the family trust them, but they've been through sort of a third-party verification. And then they're saying, okay, you can use your subsidy credit to pay your aunt, your cousin, whoever it might be. And again, this is usually just done for a 1 or 2 day type situation. We aren't seeing this as like an ongoing paying for that person maybe monthly, but we are seeing it offered as a 1 to 5 day sort of gaps measure, where they're recognizing that, especially in these near distribution centers and sort of rural locations, sometimes a third-party care provider isn't an option for a family. And so this is the best way for them to have that care need met and still show up for the job fully present.
That's so nice. That's really nice. For me, that would be my mother-in-law.
Right.
The backup, right.
And also it sort of takes out the awkwardness, because your mother-in-law, even if you're in a position to pay that person, may not feel comfortable taking it for you. Although this goes into the whole piece about the unseen workforce that we're now, hearing more and more about. She really should be compensated for her work at a certain point in time, but it takes out that awkwardness of you paying her. And again, when your company is doing that, it's just such a nice, it carries such a halo effect in terms of how you feel about your employer.
Yep, I totally agree. I think we have time maybe for one more question, Kate.
Yes. And you may have spoken to this a little bit, but how are organizations addressing employees' needs when they have a corporate component of their business and then also satellite locations or a distributed workforce?
Yeah, and this kind of ties into the bring on your own care provider. But one of the things I'm really excited about is we've seen a trend over the past 2 years where employers are now coming in and asking us if we can serve their distributed workforce even before they're talking about their home headquarters. And it used to be more the reverse. So I'm excited to see that companies are thinking sort of holistically about the benefit. And what we are seeing is sort of a matched benefit, where if you're offering subsidized care, it's probably the same for the headquarters location as the field location. If you're offering a benefit that brings in an on-site care center for the headquarters location, it's a subsidy for a daycare or preschool solution for people in the field. And so we're really seeing them say, okay, if I'm going to offer these 3 components to my benefit, I want to make sure that it serves each segment of my population where they're at. And this can look slightly different for the headquarters office than it may look for the field. But at the end of the day, they're making sure that in each category of benefit they're offering, that the need is being met by each of those locations.
Yep, and serving all of their employees. That's the key. Well, Lynn, it looks like we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really great, insightful conversations. And we will absolutely send around the deck to everybody on the call so that way, hopefully you weren't taking lots of copious notes. But thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lynn, for joining us. Great discussion.
Oh, thanks BenefitBump for having me. I love talking about it.
Bye, everyone.